Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where I interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today's guest never thought of herself as an athlete. After a serious health scare during the pandemic, she started by walking around her apartment to try and rebuild some strength. Those steps eventually led her to a 17-mile walk with her dad, a half marathon she planned to walk but ended up running 9 miles of, and finally, her first marathon in Milwaukee. Her journey is full of lessons every runner learns. Pace doesn't define you, community makes the miles lighter, and finish lines are always more than just the miles. In Molly's case, her first marathon finish line also included a run-in with some wild turkeys at mile 21, so make sure you stick around for that story. Without further ado, let's jump in. Please welcome Molly. All right, Molly, thank you so much for coming on the show. Super excited to talk to you and talk about the last 2 years of running. Sounds like this has been a newer journey on your mind, but we're still in it. We're still doing it. So thank you so much for coming on the show and excited to break it all down.
It is. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Taylor.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, we always like to start from the beginning. So where did running start for you? If something was before running, where did movement start for you? How did we make our way into this world?
It was actually entirely by accident. So for me, I never thought of myself as athletic growing up. I was the last kid in gym class to want to ever run. You could not make me run the mile, even for a grade. It's like it was not happening. In high school or college and a little bit after, started trying to be like, okay, I need to actually feel good and feel physically capable of doing things. So I tried a few things, going to the gym, never quite found my stride. Really enjoyed spin classes for a couple years, and then actually during the pandemic, I got meningitis somehow,
Yeah.
which put me in the hospital. Threw all of my physicality off. Had a pretty long recovery from that, and through that, part of it was rebuilding my stamina. So I started walking literally around my apartment, and then it was out, up the street, and then it was
Yeah.
around the block, and slowly building from that. Um, and eventually, I was walking like an hour or two almost every day because I was like, I just pandemic needed to get out and move somehow, but also I physically was starting to finally feel better and feel like myself. Um, my hometown does this festival every year that has a 17-mile walk. And so
Mm.
I was like, okay, starting to feel better by like 2021, starting to actually get a lot more movement in. I said to my dad, I said, okay, May of 2023, because I'm not going to be ready to walk 17 miles, in a few months, but
Sure.
a year from now, would you walk the 17 miles with me? And he had run a marathon before. He had done some 20-mile distances. And so he was like, yes, let's do it. I'll train for it. We'll do this together. And we did that. And it was so good to have him there with me. My whole family came and cheered me on at the end. One of my best friends. Like, it was just such a special thing to be able to do with him after that experience and having that health scare. And then did the 17 and thought, well, half marathon has always been like somewhere in the back of my mind of like, that would be a cool bucket list thing, but never thought I could do it. So I signed up for one. That was May. I signed up for one in November of 2023, planning to walk it because I was like, I've walked the 17, I can do this. As I started training, I'd be like, well, maybe I can run a little. Let me just see. And then I'd run for a minute or two and be like, I hate this. There's a reason I keep walking. I hate this.
Right.
So I was like, okay, no, we're still going to walk it. That's fine. But on the day, and I'm sure I've listened to some other, episodes you've had, everyone talks about that race day environment, and it's so
Hmm.
real because I got there on the day planning to walk and ran the first 9 miles without stopping, having
Dang, yeah.
never run before.
Sure.
And it was crazy. And so it was entirely by accident. That's a very long-winded answer, but that is how I started.
No, that's great. I love that. So yeah, you were full send. And some like you said, I think accidentally falling into it's the best way to describe that because you weren't planning on doing that until the day of. How
Yeah.
did it feel? Like the 9 miles, you were coming off like you had been walking a lot, obviously, and training in that way. But
Yeah.
like, how did your body feel? How did it feel?
It felt really good. I was surprised I was able to keep going, like the adrenaline and having everyone around you, and it really pushed me to be like, okay, I can do this. And I
Yeah.
was a little, it felt a little weird, I was like, I don't know what my stride is. I don't know, how my body does this, but I got to roughly mile 9, and that's where there was this huge hill. And I was like, all
Mm.
right, I think I've challenged myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did a little like run walk for the rest of it, but was able to finish that. And within an hour of finishing that first half marathon, I was already signed up for my next one with friends, planning to run it and do a whole thing.
Nice. I love that. Cool. Well, I love that there's always like that, like you said, like that experience that you prove to yourself that you can do something and then it opens up this whole world for you. And you said that you were looking into like a community and people to do it with. So like how did you
Hmm.
decide on that aspect? Like to train with a group of people, to put the training plan together? Like how did all that look?
Yeah, so I crossed the finish line, and a friend of mine had also run it that morning. And so we met up, and we met up with there was a couple of us. And we were sitting having our, post race beer, and we're like, so there's a Napa to Sonoma half marathon that we could do and make a trip of it and get, a couple other friends to join. And so immediately literally signed up. And then we actually ended up training. We started running together, my friend and I did,
Mhm.
and her and I just were like, we run at different paces, and neither one of us
Mm,
wanted the other one to feel bad about taking it a little slower or going, pushing too hard. And so
yeah.
we would like text each other. It was more of that like community of holding each other accountable and being like, we had a little group
Yes.
chat of everyone who was going to California. Of like, hey, this is what my run was today. How many miles are you guys doing? Um, and slowly built the community kind of after that. But it was
Yeah.
more of like, how do we do this without adding in that imposter syndrome of, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with you,
Yeah.
and without you know, holding someone back, but still encouraging. Like it was trying to find that balance, if that makes
Totally.
sense.
Yeah, totally, totally. It's funny. I just got done filming. I was filming some solo stuff before our episode today, and I was
Yeah.
filming about like the community aspect and finding your community, like how important it is to find people that are like your pace, something you could see yourself under, see yourself pushing to be. Like it's so important to either, yeah, like find a group like you did of people where you can still kind of do your own thing and they support you in other ways, or if you're gonna find a group to run with, like it's so important to find people who are like you as well, so that like you said, you don't get that like imposter syndrome sense of where I should be when you're maybe not even there yet, you know? So I actually love that you were
Right.
thinking about that so early on.
Yeah. It was one of those where it was like always both been like running never felt fun because we were
Uh huh.
always, quote, slower than other people. And so even though we still were not quite at the same pace with each other, we're like, we're not going to put that feeling on each other again and make this not
Totally.
this be fun. So,
Totally. I love that. Cool.
yeah.
So you were training together. How I guess we'll just break down training for your first half marathon. How did it go? What was feeling good? What was feeling like a little uncomfortable and like learning experiences? What was that all like?
I had a hard time figuring out what training actually looked like because walking as much as I could to now, okay, I have to figure out how do I actually train for this type of distance and not
Yeah.
injure myself. And to be honest, I didn't probably do as much research as I should have. It was more of just like, okay, I have from November to July. How can I slowly? I'm starting at, I could do 9 miles apparently. So build from that base and slowly. So it was like trying to figure out Wisconsin winter running between November and then July. How do I prep
Sure.
for running in California in July and testing out, okay, do I like these shorts? Do I want to run 10 miles today? Probably not. I'm going to split it between 5 miles today, 5 miles tomorrow, and it was a lot
Yeah.
of trial and error and a lot of just going in blindly, to be completely honest.
Yeah, yeah. I think for your first half marathon, trial and error is honestly not ever a bad thing. I think you learn a lot. What were some of the things that you were learning, or like looking back on the experience? What were some of the things that you took from that?
Oh my gosh. I think the biggest thing was, and now this is such a thing for me moving forward, is like your pace doesn't matter. You're still covering the same mileage. So getting ready for a half marathon, first of all, knowing I could do it really helped because it took away that like what if. So to go from signing up for one intending to walk and then signing up for one being like, no, I want to run this. The pacing, it was one of those where I was like, okay, well, I know I can do it. So who cares if today I run a 12-minute mile and tomorrow I run a 15-minute mile,
Yeah.
and just taking it day by day. And that was such an important thing I learned, thankfully, early on, that I still to this day am like, just because I've now done other things, sure, my pace has improved, as you know, it does as you continue moving, but
Yeah.
that's not the end of the day. And, this morning I ran at like a 13.5-minute pace, and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And like I said, I love that you had that like realization so early on in your running journey too. I'm sure that having that for your first marathon was really impactful of like building this longer term relationship with running over time. But curious like about the finish and everything. This was your first big finish line besides the first one that you did. So how did it feel? Like what did it feel like crossing the finish line? You obviously signed up for something right after. So yeah,
Yeah.
what was the finish line experience like?
I mean, I've cried at, I think, every finish line so far. It just, there's something about it that is so impactful and just proving to yourself. And I think for me, especially to go from not doing anything to then having to deal with my own mortality in a really scary way. And then
Yeah.
I literally built from nothing. Like I could barely walk around my apartment. And then to go from being able to do that to walk 17 miles or to run, to then do that again and continue. It's just one of those where you're like, I can do insane and incredible things. And I've always been a little stubborn. So it's like, okay, if I just put my mind to it, it's going to happen. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of when. So that finish line was, I think, almost every single time I've been like, okay, what's next? I want to do this again.
Yeah. I love that. Cool. So you were thinking, what's next? Were you thinking from there all the way to the marathon distance? Like, how can I keep this going? Or were you more thinking about doing another half or like perfecting the half marathon distance?
So it was one of those where after the, I did the 17 mile in May, the half marathon in November, signed up for another half in July. I think I'm going to try and run the 17 instead of walk it, just to test that out a little bit more and be like, okay, what's 4 more miles at that point? And so then it was, as soon as I did that one, which there was another half marathon in there, the next between July, November, that May.
You were full send on the halves.
Yeah, I went full send on the half. I was like, I think this is my favorite distance. And to this day, I see a half marathon and I have to like convince myself not to sign up for it just randomly. But once I ran the 17, and I didn't even run the whole thing. It was hot. It was May in southern Wisconsin. So it was humid and I think already 80 degrees by like 7 or 8 a.m. But I did it and I ran most of it and it still counts. That's another thing I think I learned too, is like, even if you take a walk break, still counts.
Yes.
And as soon as I did that, I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. But I didn't tell anyone because I was afraid if I said it, it would ruin it. I don't know why. There was this weird superstition in my head, but it was this like secret goal to be like, I'm going to do it. What was 4 more? What's 9 more at this point? If I can do 17, I'm going to do it. So I started thinking about it and started really researching. That's when I dove into like, okay, how do you actually set up a training block? How do you actually strength train and find those elements that are going to actually propel you further, and sleeping and rest days, really dove into the science behind it. And then after I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I found one and I had all these stipulations for myself of it has to have at least a 6-hour cutoff. It's got to be in Wisconsin. My family can be there. Cause I was like, I'm not doing this if I don't have that support. I know it would just be that much harder. And so I found the one in Milwaukee that I ended up doing. I signed up for it. And then I started telling everyone. I was like, okay, now it's real. I'm doing this. And so it was honestly that kind of, I know I can do X distance. I know I can do 17. So even if I walk the last 9, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's how it got to that point.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, it's like you're gonna figure it out, you know. One of those like I'm giving into the experience, and whatever happens is gonna happen. But you know that you're gonna prove to yourself that you can, you know, do something like that. Before we move on to marathon training, I'm curious, since you ran so many halves, like what is it about the half marathon distance that you love so much? What keeps you coming back to them?
Uh, I have actually been thinking about that a lot because I am signed up for 2 more this year. And I think it's something about where in a 5K, I don't know, like I shouldn't say you, I push myself to go as fast as I possibly can because I know it's one of the shorter distances. And then I just gas myself out. And
Yeah,
I don't like them as much, but I have done, I think 5 this summer. So I still do them, but
yeah,
then the marathon, I definitely want to do another one. But there's something about the half that it's just enough of a challenge. It's a couple hours and you still have this insane sense of accomplishment because even a half marathon is one of those things that before I ever did it, it was such a far off feeling unachievable dream that once I accomplished it, it's one of those like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this because that feeling hasn't gone away of, wow,
yeah.
I can do this. And it just feels like just enough of a challenge while still being fun to want to just keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of addicting in that way where, yeah, you can push yourself enough. It's, you know, over that threshold of running where you could maybe get like a little runner's high or something like that. Like you're pushing yourself, but it's not so much that you're dead tired at the end. I 100% agree. It's a fun distance for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, let's talk about marathon training, the exciting stuff. So
Yeah.
we started piecing together the plan. Was it a specific plan that you were following, or you said you just kind of like found a resource online that you were going to piece together, or how did you decide on the plan?
So I looked at a few and then I plugged a bunch of stuff into ChatGPT actually, which I was like, okay, hadn't really used AI for a lot. And so I was like, okay, let's just see. And I was like, if I want to run this specific marathon and how long do I need to train if I can run a half marathon at this pace and just put like all of my stats, all of my stuff in. And I said, you know, if I'm planning a 16-week training block because of course, I had like a big trip to London in December. And so I couldn't start training until like right around there and had to do my first couple runs on my trip. And then I was like, okay, I can dive in from there. And it just built it all out. And then I am such a planner where I put every single run and every single strength training session and all of that into my calendar and was like, we're going to just be super organized. And I actually signed up for a personal trainer because I had tried to go to the gym before and just never I'd talk to friends and be like, you should teach me how to lift. And it was always like, I actually just need to find a professional because I don't want to get injured. I managed to do the couple halves without getting injured and wanted to keep that. And so got a personal trainer, was going about twice a week, for a few months throughout the training. And then was like, okay, I have this base. I can just apply this. And so I kind of created my own, but used a lot of resources online, from other training plans and looking at other, you know, how much rest do you need? And, you know, is 16 weeks enough? You know, if you can start like, if half the base of a half is 16 enough and, you know, kind of going from there.
Sure. Cool. That makes sense. And then, so your charted territory is the 13 miles. What was it like the first time that you were out of uncharted territory? Like the first 14, 15 mile run? What did that look like? Yeah,
those were fun because it made me think of that 17 miler I had done. So I was like, okay, even though this is the first time I'm doing it, preparing, it still felt new because I was training for a marathon. So it was like, okay, this is still base. I have to do this twice. I have to do this. You know, I have to do so much more than this. And it was funny because I would tell my sister, I'm like, okay, I'm going for a run. This is roughly what time I'm going to be back. Like I shared my location with my best friend. I'm like, I'm going to make sure people know where I am, but it was Wisconsin winters again. So I'm dealing with snow, ice.
Yeah.
I think there was one day where it was probably maybe 10 degrees with a wind chill below that. And so I ended up having to do my 16 miler on the treadmill because I was like, I can't, there's a lot I can do, but that's crazy. Yeah. And I felt insane. But I was like, you know what? This is mental endurance. And if I can do 16 miles on a treadmill, I'm pretty sure I can do 26 outside when it's not freezing.
Totally.
But hitting each of those milestones was again, that feeling of like, I'm doing that. Like, I can do this. And every time it was that confidence boost of, I didn't have to call someone and get picked up. And even if you do, you try again. But, there was only one time I had to call my sister to come pick me up. And it was because, unfortunately, as a woman, I did not feel safe on a trail because of people around. And, that happens, unfortunately, but it didn't stop me. I was like, I'm going to just run a different trail next time. And I'm going to, keep doing what I did to feel safe and have her as my backup to come pick me up, in a couple minutes. But they were such milestones of, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Wait, and then you start casually dropping like, oh yeah, I just ran 15 miles this weekend. I just ran 16 miles. And everyone thinks that you are insane, but also so impressive. And it's just like, I am, aren't I?
Yeah, I am that girl.
I am.
Yeah. No, that's great. I remember the first time you like casually have a 10-mile run in the middle of the week. That's like a training. It's not even your long run. It's just a training run. And you're like, I am a different person. This is insane.
Truly. Like I'm planning my social life around my runs. I never thought that would happen.
But it happened so quickly. Do you remember like when that happened for you? Like, was there a specific point that you remember going, oh, like my life is completely different now that I'm doing this?
I think it was almost like halfway through training, because the initial stages I had been keeping in like half marathon shape, because I had spread them out, at November, July, November. So I had been pretty consistently staying in that shape. So that my life had kind of naturally like fit around that. So then as I progressed beyond, having to do 15, 6, it was like, okay, my Friday nights are about, Thursday, Friday, eating as many carbs as I can, getting as much sleep as I possibly can, spending Saturday running and stretching and recovering. And then, okay, maybe I can see my friends on Sunday, but I'm probably going to be still tired from yesterday's long run.
Yeah, it starts to take over your life so quickly. But then you start to get kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but like you start to really crave that, like at a certain point in training where it just feels good. Like it feels like your life has a whole lot of purpose. Did you feel like that through 100%. Training?
Taper was so hard because I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself now?
Right.
What do I do?
Yeah, like where's all my time? This is crazy.
Totally. I ran with all this time. Like now I have so much. What was I doing before? I know what I was doing when I was running, but like now what?
Now what is the question of the day for sure. So where did you peak out? Like was it a 20-mile run, 22? What was your top run?
20. So I did a 20-mile run, and that one was such a gut check for me because that was one of my hardest training runs where like literally got my period, I think around mile 10 and just was like, what am I doing? Like I felt so nauseous. It was one of the hardest runs. It took me the longest to get through. It was one of those where I was like, I don't know if it was the first time I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the marathon. Everything up until then, 17, 18, like my 17 and 18 were some of my best training runs. And I was hitting paces that I never thought I would hit for that long. And I was feeling so confident. Then the 20-miler, I just felt so like nauseous on the like it just did not feel good. And so I was like, that was that first, what if I can't do this? But I got through it. I still did it. I still finished the run. And it was, again, like one of those, like, I'm strong. Women are strong. If we can do this and have, period cramps and all of that and still keep doing it and still complete a 20-mile run. Okay. I need to I can still do this. like, and which that was really hard. But then I started tapering from there and then I just felt insane.
Yes. Yes. I say it all the time on the show. It's like, I've never heard somebody in the middle of these two categories for taper. It's either
No.
you go absolutely insane or you absolutely love it. And there's nowhere in the middle. I am also I feel crazy when I'm going through taper too. It's a weird, uncomfortable time. Like, especially for your first marathon when you don't know like what these feelings are and like what's supposed to be happening. It can feel really uncomfortable.
Well, and luckily, I have a couple friends who have run marathons too. And, some of the friends I had run with before and other friends who, live out of state, but would text me and be like, no, this is normal. Your body is used to this level of endorphins and now you're not getting them from running. So you feel almost like a withdrawal of those endorphins that you're used to at this insane level that you never were, when you run 20 miles, you're getting crazy endorphins from running that now, okay, maybe I'm running 10 miles and then, okay, I'm running 6. What? And so I had a ton of support, and I live with my sister and she's hilarious. She and I are really close, and she was just like, I think I'm going to leave you alone for the last week or two because you are not yourself. And I'm like, I know, I feel insane.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. That's really interesting. I've never heard somebody talk about it like with endorphins. That's so interesting. That you're 100% right. That's really what it is you get so used to like all of these inputs and then you don't have those inputs anymore. You're like, what the world? Yeah, that's cool. I've never heard it like that. Well, cool. So taper, we got through it, obviously. How far? I know you said that you are in Wisconsin. How far away did you have to travel to get to Milwaukee? Was it like a day trip? Not far?
No, I ended up I was like, okay, I want to prepare though. Like I want to be able to like do my night before routine. I don't want to have to get up even earlier. And then I knew like, I'm not going to be able to check out by 11 a.m. I'm still going to be running by 11 a.m. So I ended up, even though it was an hour away, I was like, I'm going to be over prepared. I'm going to get a hotel for the Friday night before and the Saturday night after. And my parents are incredible. My parents were like, all right, we're doing that too. So they booked the same hotel and they got rooms for them and my siblings. And so we ended up making just a weekend of it. And that made it so much easier to be like, okay, I'm not just sitting in Milwaukee by myself in a hotel room. Like we went to dinner and my whole family was like, we're going to carb load with you. We're going to all eat pasta and we're going to like just make a whole weekend of it. And it was really special. So that made me feel less insane because I was like, okay. And then I was like, all right, you can all keep going and doing whatever you want. I'm going to bed. I'm starting my like nighttime routine at like 8 p.m. I don't care what the rest of you do. I need as much sleep as I can get. And somehow I slept great. There were no night before nerves. There were no like, because some of even my half marathons, I've been like waking up being like, oh my gosh, I forgot my alarm. You wake up and you're like, race day jitters, but there was none of that. And I really think it was having my family all there and kind of going through that night before experience with me. So that was really special.
I love that. It's a nice little distraction, I guess, to like have people around you doing other things other than just like talking and talking about the race. But no, that's great. I love that. Race day. So we get to the start line. How were you feeling morning of? You said you weren't feeling really nervous like the day before, but how were you feeling once you were, like in your gears, lining up at the start line? What was all that like?
I was so excited. It was one of those where it was just, and I talked to other friends who had run marathons or, my dad had run a marathon. So he actually took me to the start line, and it was a lot of like, you'll never get your first marathon. Like you'll never get this back. Enjoy every second of it. And so I was luckily able to just be so in the moment, and it was so much fun. Just, he stayed with me as long as he possibly could and then watched me start. And then I think it was at like 7 a.m. So my siblings and my mom were like, okay, we'll come meet you a couple miles in, we don't need to deal with all the traffic and I said, like sleep in.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's going to be a long day. And so it was funny because they're different color bibs too. And so somebody came up and was like, oh, what color is that one for? And I was like, oh, I'm doing the full. And he's just like, okay, I'm doing the 5K. And I thought I trained a lot, like, good luck. And it was just such a fun, everyone's talking to everyone. Like I always have the best time at start lines because everyone's so excited. Everyone's encouraging each other. Like it's just always such positive energy. And then was able to start. And I was like, okay, it's happening. Like it was one of those out of body, it's happening. I'm actually doing this. I'm actually running a marathon. Like, this isn't just talking about it. Like, now I have to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. It was a easy start, but then it was like reality hit as I got out that start corral. Like, okay, we're doing it.
Here we go. Yeah. Well, cool. I agree. The start lines of these races, big, small, whatever, like they're always so exciting. It's the nicest people. You'll get the best advice. Like if you are at a start line, if you're somebody that's normally like goes internal and like listens to your own music, take the headphones out. Try to talk to some people. Like it can really settle the nerves, I think, on race day to just like take in what's going on around you at the start line for sure. But cool. So yeah, let's break down the race. I'll let you decide how you want to break it down. Maybe we start with like the first half and anywhere you want to break down in there. But how did we start?
Yeah. So one of the coolest things was the race that we did use this app called Race Joy that lets your family and friends and everybody send you like cheers, they call them. And so as I started, I think I like looked back after, I don't think I went more than like 20 minutes without one of my friends, my family, like, because I had sent everyone the link. I was like, all my friends, everyone, you can track me. And so I was getting cheers every 20 minutes. So even though this marathon trail ended up being through a lot of like city parks and things where there wasn't a lot of room for spectators. So there weren't a lot of people cheering you on as you went, but I had them with me literally the whole time. And so that carried me through that first half in a way where, as so many people do, I went out way too fast. I ended up PRing my half marathon by like 4 minutes. And the half marathon I did in November, I ended up breaking that time by almost 9 minutes by April from November. And I was like, I knew immediately that it was a mistake, but I was feeling so good. I had, my legs were feeling fresh. I felt like I was easily keeping up this pace that I was like, okay, I'm feeling really good. And then once I started getting to like the 10 mile, I was like, oh no, this is a mistake. Like I still feel good, but I need to try and slow down. And I have such a hard time of pulling back when I feel good. And that's something I still need to learn more about. But it was one of those where I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to enjoy, the first half. And I need to learn from that. But I cut off a few minutes of my half marathon time. And so and it was a really flat course too. So that helped, where it was just like, you just kind of go. The hard part was this course was a half marathon loop that you do twice. So I got to the half marathon point, saw the finish line, and had to mentally be like, that's not for me. Ignore it, put the blinders on, turn around and do the whole thing again.
Oh my gosh.
And honestly, I don't know if I would choose a course like that again in the future, because that just mentally, because then too, like as you start, you had to go over this bridge. So there's an incline. And I was like, all right, I have to slow down. Like this, it's physically making me slow down. And also ended up getting my period on race day. So it was like, all right, flashing back to that 20-mile race of like, okay, we're doing it. Like we're doing it today too. And good thing that happened then, because now here we are. And so I was that's when everything started hitting me physically again too, like right around that point again, like that 10 to 13 mile. That's when I just was feeling all the nausea, all the other symptoms of just like, my body wants to lay down, even though I felt so good for the first half. And then it was like, okay, I feel like it was seeing the start line just like switch something in my brain. And I had to basically talk myself out of it and be like, nope, we're starting. This is great. We're starting. This is the beginning of the second half and we're good. And then I was fine for probably 5 miles, like the next 5-ish miles got around like somewhere around 18 to 20. I was starting to like really feel like I needed to slow down, really feel like my hip was just killing me. And I was like, okay, we're going to slow down a little bit, take a few more walk breaks. And then at mile 21, I got attacked by 4 turkeys on the trail.
Stop. What in the world?
And birds are my biggest fear, almost phobia level.
Turkeys are giant birds.
They're giant. They're mean. They like, I started almost having a panic attack, and I'm like this close to calling my family and being like, someone needs to pick me up.
Yeah.
And my best friend had also driven into town with her son. So I had her and my nephew. One of my friends had come up from Chicago. So I'm like, I have friends here. I have family here. Someone is going to pick me up because I'm not dealing with these birds. I'm just not. And it was one of those moments where I was keeping an eye on my heart rate too. And I was doing pretty, I was at like 175, 177 for most, that was the highest I had hit through most of the first 21 miles. Mm-hmm. Turkey, it's over 190. I'm like, if anyone questions it, I have scientific proof that I am afraid.
Yes.
So I'm standing there basically I keep backtracking because the 4 of these turkeys keep puffing up and like charging at me. So I'm backtracking. My gosh. And then luckily this random woman who was out for a jog just stopped and could see that I was not, she's like rubbing, like actually trying to get me out of this panic attack, rubbing my back, trying to just be like, we got this. This guy comes on a bike and he's like, okay, I'm going to help you guys. Tries to get around them. He gets around them and he's like, I'm going, bye. And we're like,
you're like, okay, thanks. Thanks for nothing.
And I'm crying, just like, I don't know what to do. So then another person comes up on a bike and I just yelled. I was like, you will help us. She stops and is just like, what? Like takes the headphones off and and I was like, you have to use your bike as a shield because they keep coming at, like they're charging and puffing up and making this nightmarish noise that I will never unhear. And he's like, all right, I guess I can try it. And I'm like, you're going to do it. You're gonna
need you.
And so the woman is like, she's almost done with a marathon. We can't let her stop. And
somehow she just is on your team all of a sudden. She's like, we gotta get her.
Immediately, we gotta get her to the finish line.
Yeah.
So he ended up having to bike back and forth to push them off the trail like 4 or 5 times. Like he would go at them and come back at it. Like they were and I get it, they're territorial. Hundreds of people had been in their space, in their home, for hours. And now they're like, we are sick of this. But I was like, absolutely not. Finally, they get past. I sprint. I'm sobbing hysterically because I'm getting so close to them. And I'm just, that fear was so visceral. And I finally get past them. And then once it was far enough away where I felt safe, I started walking and and I was like, no, we are not having a full-blown panic. We are not going to end up we are finished. If you can do that, you can do literally anything. If you can face your biggest fear in the middle of at the end of a marathon, not even the middle, at the end of a marathon, you can do anything. And it was one of those where I was like, okay, we are doing this. And then my family started texting me because they were like, are you okay? You slowed down, like you were in one spot for a while. Like,
yeah. They probably thought something was injured or something, I would think, right?
So I'm like texting I'm like, okay, I just need you to like encourage me to get through this. And, so I those last couple miles, it was so much self-talk of like, you've done this. This is the new part, but you just dealt with turkeys. So you can do this.
Yeah. We did the hard thing.
Yes. Your heart rate is no longer in the 190s. We're okay. Like we are okay. And as soon as I got to it was in the last mile and I was struggling, but there was like a bluff that's what that first bridge was by the finish and the start line. And so you can see it from that last bit. So that was that encouragement of like, okay. And my sister, it was the most sibling response. So everyone had found me around mile 17-ish and she had a megaphone. And my first response was, who in their right mind gave her a megaphone? And then I was like, no, she's hearing me out. This is good. But it was that sibling instinct to be like, who gave her this?
Take that away from her. Yeah.
Who gave her this? And so, but then she spotted me because she knew what like hat I had on and the clothes I had on. So she spotted me across the field, across the street and up on this bluff in between trees. And she's screaming into the megaphone, like, go Molly. And I was like, okay, I can't walk. I have to run. pushed me on in a way. And then my nephew came sprinting across the field and he was like, it was so cute. He's like, Auntie Molly, less than 1% of people have run a marathon. And
oh my God.
So then I'm crying.
That's so sweet.
Oh, it was so sweet. And then my sister had talked to a bunch of people at the end and we're like, it's my sister. Her name's Molly. We're going to cheer really loud. And so everyone was cheering at the end. And like, I'm already basically tearing up now thinking about it. Like, just so special crossing that finish line. And the first thing out of my mouth was, I got attacked by turkey.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. I remember, so I'll give like a little context. Yeah. Molly filled out the form for the show and I remember reading your blurb about getting attacked by turkeys and thinking like, this was either like a little blip in the race that you were like, turkeys, that's weird, keep running, or this was like an event. So I was waiting to see like how this came up, and that's an event. That's insane that happened. How long were you standing there, like waiting for the turkeys to allow you to finish your race?
It was like almost 10 minutes, I think. It was close to 10 minutes.
Gosh.
I had backtracked enough that I ended up doing, I think it was 26.5 or 26.6 miles. So I was like, I did an ultra.
Yeah, you did. You earned it.
It was a solid 10 minutes of, I would get close and then they'd charge and then I'd back up and then I'd try to get a little bit closer and then they'd charge again. And I was just like, I physically can't, like, it was such a fight, flight, or freeze, and I froze. Totally. And I was like, I can't. It was a whole event. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's insane. Did you ever run into that lady again after, or did you guys separate?
Nope. It was
what an angel of a lady.
Truly my angel. Like, got me through the hardest part of the race. Yeah. And then never saw her again. I don't know what happened to her. If she's listening, thank you. I truly would not have finished the marathon without her. Like, it was wild. It was wild.
That's crazy. But you got your finish line experience. Your shout out to your family. That sounds like they had an amazing part in making the finish line, like a special moment for you. What were you thinking after you crossed the finish line? Were you like, what just happened to me? Or were you able to like soak it all in? Like, what did it feel like?
It was definitely what just happened to me. Mm-hmm. Like, what did I just do? My mom kept being like, are you okay? You look like you're in so much pain. And I was like, I don't feel great, but I feel great, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's like, I need to lay down, but also if I lay down, I'm not going to get like, so I was like, I need to just walk a little bit, like, and they were all there. And it was funny. One of my other friends came up from Chicago and she was like, Molly, I left Chicago, got on a bus, got on a train. You were already running from that at the beginning. You ran the whole time I was on the train from Chicago to Milwaukee, and then you ran further. And she was like, that put into perspective how much you were running. Was I got all the way from Chicago to Milwaukee and you still were running. And it was just this crazy, like, she's there. One of my best friends, like I said, since I was 5, her and her son were there, my siblings, my parents, and a couple of random strangers. There was one person I also met at the start line and we like said hi and kind of ran a lot together. And she waited for me at the end too.
Oh, so sweet.
And it was just, it was so cool. It was it didn't quite hit me that I had run a marathon right away. It was one of those, I don't know what I just did. And then we all went out to lunch and, had a nice little afternoon. And I think I ended up looking and I did like 58,000 steps or something crazy that day, because you end up walking before or after, there's so much. And it started hitting me then when we got back to the hotel and I was like, I did that.
Yeah.
And
it's still such a cool feeling.
Yeah. It still is one of those like high moments for me.
Totally. Oh, I love that. That's such a good one. So I'm curious, like we talked about where you started at the beginning of this episode where, you had that experience through COVID where you really had to like rebuild yourself. Once you had a chance to reflect or looking back on the whole thing, what did that marathon mean to you? What did that mean rounding out that entire, experience for you?
It was crazy because I was sick in July of 2020. And then I ran my marathon in April of 2025. So it was almost 5 years later to go from literally being on the brink of death, and not an exaggeration, to running a marathon and being upright across the finish line, running that last mile, being able to do all that. It just felt so empowering of like, okay, I didn't die and I can rebuild. And if I can rebuild from that and get to marathon fitness in 5 years, what else can I do? And it has just pushed me so much in everything I do, in everything I approach. I'm like, well, I can do that. If I can do this, I can do that. And it has given me the best confidence boost I've ever had for anything, regardless of any other context. It makes me feel unstoppable. And it's the coolest thing. And I wish everyone could have that feeling. And I hope they get it, because it has just been the best thing for me.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's like everything seems small once you accomplish something really big, you know?
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was filming like my recap of my last marathon, I was talking about, from my first marathon even, like I was talking about how what you doing the dishes, like easy stuff that's everyday little things where you run your first marathon, you do something really hard, and then all of a sudden everything feels easier. It's like it puts everything in perspective. So I love that you had that experience, and I agree. I hope that people who haven't ran their first marathon get to have that experience as well.
Yes.
I always ask for a piece of advice at the end for the people who are thinking about running their first marathon or are in the beginning stages of their running journey. What's maybe a piece of advice you might offer somebody like that?
I think the thing that I would say is believe in yourself. Like, you can do it. It's hard work, but you can, if you want it, you'll do it. And so if you're even thinking about running a marathon, I went years. You can ask any of my friends or family. I would have said, I will never do that. And then as soon as I got those little bits of like, no, I could do this. Once I believed in myself that I could do it, I did it. So it's going to be hard work. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be trial and error. There's going to be, you find the right shoes, you don't find the right shoes. You figure, there's so many pieces to it. But if you have the confidence in yourself and the belief that you can do it, even if it's hard, even if you have to backtrack, even if you, whatever, if you believe you can do it, you're going to do it. Like, that is the biggest thing, that you have to have that belief that you're going to do it. Otherwise, it's too easy to talk yourself out of it. It's way too easy to be like, well, I could just stop. And believing that I could do it is what made me do it, and what made me do it despite some of the challenges.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Cool. Well, thank you so much for walking us through your first marathon story. That was really great to just, see how we got from where you were to where you ended. Is just like an incredible full circle journey for you. So thank you for telling your story. We're going to wrap up here with some fun questions and then transition over to the bonus. Talk a little bit more about maybe some of the races that you have coming up next as well. But for the fun questions, I always like to ask about fuel and shoes. I always give the disclaimer that for fuel and shoes, these are your own journey. We talked about trial and error in the beginning. Trial and error is your best friend with these things for sure. So do your own thing. This is all just like fun suggestions that other people has worked for other people. But for you, for fuel, what have you liked for fuel over time?
Yes. And 100%, what works for me may not work for other people. Like, I agree with that disclaimer 100%.
Yeah.
I tried the goos initially because they were like thrown at me in my first marathon. And I was like, let me just try this. Ooh, couldn't, like, tried them. It worked for the day, thankfully. And then I was like, I'm going to buy a few of these and try them on like my training runs.
Yeah.
Hated them. The minute, because I like either a vest or a waistband with pockets, and they just get so warm from the body heat that I was like, it's one thing if they're not warm and handed to you. It's another when they're warm on your body. Couldn't do it. So then I was like, okay, what else? And I found that the Annie's fruit snacks have almost the same sugar and carbs and all of that as those goos. So like one of the Annie's gummies is almost the same nutrition as a goo. And so I do those. Those are my favorite, because then I don't feel like I'm like, you don't get that sticky mouth feeling.
Yeah.
And even if they get a little warm, it's fine. Like, they're not gross. And for me, that works because you're chewing instead of just like swallow. I don't know. I didn't like the goos. So those, and then Nerds, I use the Nerds gummy clusters as like a little treat on my long run. So I'll bring a bunch of the gummies.
Those.
Same. So I save those for my last Like whenever I need the last bit of fuel at the end of a long run, I'm like, I bring my Nerds gummy clusters as my treat of, I'm almost at the end. It's almost like bribing myself of like,
yeah,
okay,
it's a reward.
Wait, this is the fun one.
Yes. Yeah, that's fun. Cool. I love that. So the shoes are really what you stick with for the most part. Cool. Love it. What about shoes? What have you like for shoes over time?
Shoes, I am loyal to Hoka. I love them. I have really weird arches, so I have custom orthotics to help. So for me, I need a little bit extra cushion because I don't feel it with those orthotics. And so I have my Hoka. The Clifton 9s have been my favorites. I hit like mileage on my shoes and had to get the new ones, the Clifton 10s, and they've changed them just enough that I'm not sure how I feel about them. So I might be looking for, other shoes, but so far I've been very loyal to my Hokas.
Cool. I love Hoka. They come up, I haven't tried them like myself, but they come up on the show a lot, and it seems like people who love Hoka, like love Hoka. Those are the shoe for them, so that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you again. We're gonna transition over to the bonus and talk a little bit further about like what's coming up next for you. But you want to just let our regular listeners know what you're training for now, where you're at with it, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So I have dealt with a bit of a hip injury after the marathon. I think I mentioned, my hip was really bothering me during the run. So I've taken a few months off, and done a lot of PT, gone to sports med. I'm not trying to mess with it. We have a game plan. I'm able to slowly start adding some mileage in. But I had already signed up ages ago for the Detroit International Half Marathon and the Madison Half Marathon, and have been really excited to do those. So my plan is run as much as I can, but if I have to walk them because I'm not going to re-injure myself. So it's one of those where I'm really, really listening to my body, doing all of the PT, doing all the things. And even like today, I had a 4.5 mile run, ended up walking some of it because I'm like, I don't want to even start feeling the twinges of pain. So I'll run or I'll start to walk a little bit before I feel that. And I've been able to slowly build up some of the mileage better that way. And so that's my plan. We'll see if I'm able to run, walk, whatever I do. But either way, I'm planning to do those. And then we'll see what happens long term with the rehab.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, good luck with the rehab. And if anybody wants to follow along with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I started Instagram. It's marathonmolly_. After I did my first marathon, I was like, I want to get more involved in the running community. And I found some really, really incredible people along the way. So if anyone else wants to talk running, please, follow along. And I'm excited to see their journey as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll put it in the show notes as well so people can find you. But for our regular listeners, thank you so much for coming on. And we're going to jump over to the bonus.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at myfirstmarathonpod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.